All right, continuing on with my Bitcoin series. This week is who is Bitcoin, and of course, to start, you have to start with who is Satoshi Nakamoto. There's endless amount of videos out there on this, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But if you're going to get into Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin, you have to understand at least a little bit about Satoshi and who this mysterious figure is. Number one, he's not been discovered, as you know, Ben. Number two, we don't know that it's an individual. A lot of people say it's one person. A lot of people say it's a combination of people. What is important is that he created Bitcoin. We know that for sure, and then disappeared. And so part of that mystery is giving it its legendary, what's a good word for it? Legendary appeal, traction, mystique. But also, mystique. But it also is what makes it decentralized, which makes it the hardest money of all time because there's no one controlling it. It's a group decentralization. So let's jump in. I got a couple quick articles, and then nobody better to explain Bitcoin or Satoshi than Michael Saylor himself. So here's what you need to know about Satoshi. So he published a paper via the cryptography mailing list in November of 2008. And I think it was labeled Bitcoin Protocol, or at least he was discussing it then. Hacker. He released the first version of Bitcoin software client in 2009 with a couple others. So basically he created Bitcoin, and then he sends it out to, I think, Hal Finney, right? Hal Finney was the first recipient, but there was a couple others that were kind of involved in this, cryptography digital mailing list. And he began to fade away from the community toward the end of 2010. And I think 2011 was officially when he left. But when he left, or I don't know if that's even the right word, disappeared or stepped away, basically hadn't been heard from since. There's a wallet that is attached to him, a digital wallet that has, I think it's 1.1 million or somewhere around 1 million, little more Bitcoin in it. And at today's value, which this article is a week or two old, his holdings would be worth $70 billion. He would be the largest Bitcoin holder in the world if he is still around, still alive. That wallet, even if he's not, but that wallet holds more Bitcoin than anybody else, any single entity, any single wallet.
He had to walk away for Bitcoin to do what it did. But at some point, it's going to be bigger than he could have even slowed down. You know what I mean?
A lot of people argue that already.
Well, I agree. And it probably is at that. But I wonder if he came back right now, would it just look really suspicious? If he said this, and the wallet reactivated, or would everybody, like for me personally, when and if he's still around, and he activates that wallet and cashes out, sometime in the next 10 or 20 years, I would just be like, congratulations. You know what I mean? That's just real cool.
That's the question you have to ask, right? And so, because I have done this several times, and in preparing for this actual episode, I did it again. It was like, okay, if he comes back, does it matter?
Right.
And I'm really, because the experts tell you, nope, doesn't matter. I was like, I'm going to try and
or is it bad? It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter in a good way, or does it matter in a bad, is it like, oh my gosh, he's played us all.
You know what's crazy is this is good, bro. This is good.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He cashes out $70 billion and then walks away again.
It's a two-part question. If he comes back, is that good or bad? And is it long-term or short-term, good or bad? Number two, if he comes back, and the way he comes back is that wallet just drains, he dumps it all onto the market. Right. I think everybody agrees that would be bad, but is it a short-term bad or is it a long-term bad? And I'm not a mathematician. I'm not any good at this, but I really think it would, the market would take a dive, but I think it would digest that bit, so here, I'll get straight to the point.
Real bad man.
In my belief, there is a certain price where that Bitcoin gets consumed and then the market goes back up. So in my mind, does it kill Bitcoin? Not even close. Does it drop it to, does it drop it 50% and then, or is it 75? And for me, this is what I'm getting at here. Ultimately, if it dropped at 90%, I would just buy more. Him coming back and dumping his Bitcoin on the market would be the best thing, as far as I'm concerned, for a person like me that wants to buy as cheap as possible. So once I made that decision, I was like, it means nothing to me. Like if he comes back and dumps it.
Yeah, because I think either the only thing that would actually hurt it long term is if he came back and there was 42 million Bitcoin or something that everybody had thought was completely different. If he comes back and dumps his wallet and that's his one shot, that's it. But the math still holds up. The algorithm, the way that Bitcoin was designed, he can't make any more. That's it. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's dumped. It's in the market. It's in the free world. Everybody splits it up.
Bro, you tripping?
But there's still only 21 million Bitcoin. Everything else is still exactly the same. You know what I mean?
You go back to the number one principle that makes it the hardest money of all time is it's limited. So
if something
the supply
happened,
is limited.
Yeah. If something happened where everything that we've learned between then and now is not correct, if there was a back door, if there was, and there isn't, like people have gone through this. People don't invest. Michael Saylor doesn't invest billions and billions and billions of dollars going, I hope there's no back door. You know what I mean? People have seen the code. People know what Bitcoin is. Had he came back and done this 10 years ago when Bitcoin was new, might have finished it off. But at this point, especially if we do hit one more bull run with ETFs and stuff like that, it doesn't matter because nothing has changed. Yeah. The code hasn't changed. There's a lot of accounts. There's a lot of wallets that are dead and not active. There's people that have lost thumb drives and people that have thrown out old computers from before. And it's like, he would just be the most well-known, but dump, even if he came back, like we said, even if this was just a great prank and he comes back and he cashes out 70 billion. Well, whatever you built it as, it still is what it is. You know what I mean? And people still want it. So, and it's still limited and you can't make more. So there'll still be people fighting for it. And yeah, like you said, it'll drop, but how low would it drop before somebody goes, I can't let it drop. I mean, I got to buy some of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if it drops from 60 to 50, people might be, I don't know. But if it drops to 20, it's like, I'm going to buy some of that. You know what I mean? Just in case.
Right.
You just can't take the risk to not own it at this
it's
point.
Still only it's still 5%, which is a sizable amount. If all the coins were in circulation, some are lost, but even at 1 million coins, it's still only 5%. And Bitcoin's been proven you can't, unless you own 51%, you can't affect the process a bit. You can't affect what makes it the hardest money of all time. So ultimately, could it cause some short-term damage? Yeah, it could cause some short-term damage, but ultimately, nobody can stop Bitcoin. That's what it comes down to. Nobody, even the founder of it, can stop it at this point.
I almost think it would just, depending on how it played out, it could be an overwhelming positive. If Satoshi Nakamoto was still alive and he went ahead and came out and said, hey, I had to walk away, and it wasn't some complete dork or some hedge fund manager or something like that. If he's like, I had to walk away in order to get this going. But just so everybody knows, I'm going to cash in some of these Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, I've been living in an apartment in upstate New York. I'm ready to, get my place down in the beach. He's like, but it's working. So continue on. And I'm holding on to Bitcoin. Was that up the whole time? I didn't even look and see that we were about to talk about Elon Musk. I was just thinking,
if you would be quiet for a second. I mean, you just talk. Yeah. So this was kind of fun. So here's a handful of, quick people that's part of the mystique, right? Is who could it be? Well, is it Elon Musk? It gives kind of some reasoning here but believability low. So it's low probability. John Nash, the mathematician, apparently he had some ties to cryptology, but even lower than Elon Musk believability. Dorian Nakamoto, of course, the famous guy, which interesting enough, he hired attorneys and everything else. I watched a really interesting video where it talked about, like, it sounds all cool to be Satoshi Nakamoto, but he would be so flooded with like news and like they basically are saying it would be a nightmare. You technically probably don't want to be a known Satoshi Nakamoto.
Not unless you have $70 billion. If you're just a guy and you have to fight off all of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like on your whatever computer engineer salary and have to deal with paparazzi and people. And it's like, Jesus, let me live my life. You know?
Yeah, you couldn't even spend your money. So it's questionable whether it'd be good anyway. Hal Finney, obviously the first recipient, he's, you know, according to this, believability is high. Like, so he definitely fits the profile that he could be the one. And then Nick Szabo is the other one that is way up there too with the possibility, but he said that I'm not him. So
that's exactly what Satoshi Nakamoto
would say, right? And I guess that's what I'm trying. If you're watching this video and you're still very new to Bitcoin, that's kind of what you have to take away from this. Is the mystique is a big part of this whole deal that has made Bitcoin what it is, but it's what he did or she or they, whatever it is, that walked away from Bitcoin. Like, I'm not going to be able to overstate what that has done. And you said it earlier, Bitcoin would not be what it is if they had not walked away, because it wouldn't be decentralized. It would be a single entity, which has been the downfall of every monetary source in the history of man. Him, she, they walking away is the only reason Bitcoin is at the price it's at and is doing what it's doing. Otherwise, it would have just been another attempt at making a new currency.
Yeah. I mean, back to Elon Musk, because, you know, he didn't invent a currency, but I bet that Tesla, if you didn't know anything about the founder of Tesla, if nobody knew anything or who created Teslas, I bet it would be more popular than it is right now. Because there are people, you know, people who would actively buy electric cars, like that crowd don't buy Teslas because they don't like Elon's political views. And it's like, that's the problem when you have a face in front of, you know, a money or a business or anything like that. And people are like, screw Elon, blah, 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 blah. I'll never buy a Tesla. And it's like, imagine if it was just some college kid or even younger, you know, somebody in high school or somebody who was shady, you know, somebody like a hedge fund manager that was like, yo, this is terrible what we're doing. This is the answer. But you found out it was Peter Schiff or somebody like that. He'd be like, I don't want anything to do with Bitcoin. I don't want anything. You know what I mean? But if you look at it, if you just get to look at the product, look at the money, look at the car, look at the, you know, thing that is being sold with no background, we don't have to worry about the founder. We don't have to worry who Elon's voting for to know whether or not I want to buy the car. You know what I mean? That's why, whether he thought this far ahead or not, walking away was the only way to get it from point A to point B.
What a time to be alive, as we like to say.
I do like to say that.
Satoshi Nakamoto, there's so much more to know. There's so much good information out on this, but what you need to know is he started it and walked away, and it is what it is today.